So welcome to the next edition of the Punk CX podcast. With me today, I have Greg Johnson, CEO of Invoca. Welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you. Always great to see you.
Can you remember the last time you were on?
I was thinking about this. It's the equivalent of I don't remember what's off the record and on the record. So I talk to you often enough.
Yeah.
I don't remember the last time we recorded it, but probably two and a half years. Do you remember the last time?
I looked it up.
When was it?
March 2018.
You're kidding me.
Nope.
Wow. Well, that just goes to show that you can have friends outside of podcasts.
Indeed. And so that was the thing, because we were talking about the future of voice and customer experience back in then, which was...
And now, some of that stuff has come true.
It is. It's like, ooh. For people that don't know you and don't know Invoca, do you want to just say a few words and introduce yourself?
Yeah, of course. So at Invoca, we're a revenue execution platform where we basically connect digital marketing, commerce and digital product and contact center together to deliver a seamless experience for consumers, typically as they're buying products and services from a brand for the very first time. So we do a lot of work sort of at the intersection of CRM, CDP, CCaaS, digital advertising platforms, which is why we're at Adobe Summit.
Awesome. And thank you for mentioning that, because we decided to record a podcast because we're both here at Summit. And this will come out a bit later in the summit because at the time of recording, we're in April. This will probably come out a little bit later. But just to round that off, what have you seen in the last couple of days that you thought, that's cool, really like that?
I mean, in general, so for full disclosure for the audience, I've been at Invoca 9 years, but before that I was at Salesforce for a decade. So there's a little bit of blue blood continues to flow through my veins. Although this is probably my 7th or 8th Adobe Summit, have gotten to know the people at Adobe very well and their products and really enjoy working with them. I feel like I continue to see this fruition of Adobe that really struck me the first time I came to Adobe Summit, which is, I think Adobe has a unique combination of two assets. And a lot of their announcements this week, I think are about leveraging the combination of those two. Great content creative workflow capabilities and great data.
Right.
And like my first impression at my first Adobe Summit was like Salesforce was a great data company, but was not a content creative company.
Right.
And I think about like Google in the same way, really great around ads and creative and ads and data and everything else. But for me, the interesting thing this week was just seeing the continued integration of like Creative Cloud and Experience Cloud. Yeah. And I thought it was interesting that you had both Anil, who runs the Experience Cloud business, and David Wadhwani, who runs the Creative Cloud business, both on stage. Yeah. Whereas it used to be sort of like, hey, you creative and content folks, you go to Adobe Max, and the data people, you come to Adobe Summit. Yeah. And so for me, sort of the way that they're using and leveraging AI to sort of connect all the proliferation of the content that you can make with more automation, less work. You can see sort of the stitchings of Workfront through a lot of the announcements, but then connecting that to the data and the outcomes that then drives back the personalization. Like for me, it was just interesting to see Adobe continue to lean into the combination of those two things strategically. Yeah. Whereas I felt like, I'm now dating myself back to 2018. Back in those days, sort of like, where's all the Creative Cloud assets? And someone looking from the outside in who tends to be a product and technology thinker, that for me was always the kind of weird thing initially. And then I feel like over the past 4 or 5 years, Adobe's really focused on the intersection of those things where, in my mind, like that's where the magic really happens. Yeah. If you're that's why you buy into Adobe.
Well, that's it. It's almost, you're a bit like, because they talk about into the platforms and ecosystems, they are going to where people kind of work and helping them execute work in a better and more efficient and more kind of creative way. And I think the interesting that I heard when Shantanu Narayan was talking to Jensen Huang from NVIDIA on the stage.
That was a fun interview. If you get a chance to watch that interview, it's fun to see the two.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the competitive is an interesting kind of way of describing it. But Jensen Huang had an interesting way of characterizing sort of like work. And he said if you think about work in two different ways, sort of like has two components, purpose and task. And he was saying that the role of technology is to reduce the amount of time that we spend on tasks, doing the mundane stuff to allow to create the space for us to do more, which is on purpose. Yep. around whether it's strategy or being more creative or kind of driving insights or all those different things. And I think it feels like that's what Adobe's trying to do, is trying to make the task easier to allow to create the space for more creativity.
Yeah, and full disclosure, for me, I don't like opining about things that I don't know a lot about. I try to acknowledge my own information or lack of information. Our business and the work that we do with Adobe is very heavily oriented around data, measurement, personalization. So I'm not super close to the content and creative world. But I mean, I think my interpretation of what's happening with AI is like the cost of creativity is coming down. And your ability, whereas in the past, you're working with an agency and you'd be saying, I'm going to go spend $1 million on a campaign, like bring me a couple of creative concepts, and they'd go away for 2 weeks and just pull all-nighters and come back with 3 concepts. Well, and the cost of those 3 concepts was like 2 or 3 works of human work. Now you can concept to your heart's delight. And I think about like a good friend of mine, he's a creative director and at a mortgage bank, but his wife has a startup company that does organic baby food. And they did a Super Bowl ad, not at a national level, but in their specific market. And it was an amazing ad that was only possible via AI. And it's because he is dove heads first into creative exploration of AI. And it was all this, it like had little babies doing all these things that, no baby would ever do in the real world.
Right.
But from an entertainment perspective, the creative is amazing.
Right.
It's awesome. And so I just look at it as like the cost of creative exploration is going down, and that task is going away. And the purpose that you can lean into is now like, the obstacles to creativity are really removed.
Yeah, perfect. Right, so we could talk about rummage around that sort of stuff for ages, but I actually wanted to ask you about a couple of things that you shared with me before the podcast.
Yeah.
And because I think it's really interesting, you said to me, the buying experience is broken at the exact moment customers need help most. And I thought, okay, can you help me understand what you mean by that and what's going on to break the customer experience and what needs fixing?
I mean, I think, so we spend a lot of time helping brands at the point in the journey where someone who is just getting to know them for the very first time makes the penultimate decision of, do I want to be a customer or not? And one of the things that kind of irritates me intellectually is that people who focus on customer experience do not tend to focus on that particular part of the journey. They tend to think a lot about existing customers and all the things that you can do. And frankly, I think like the existing parts of the customer journey, they're harder and easier in ways because you have more data, you have a better understanding of who the customer is. But I just think about like, this is the make or break moment for you as a brand. And the verticals that we serve, so think financial services, telecommunications, property and casualty insurance, healthcare, automotive. These are big decisions where you're making a decision about having a relationship with a brand for a decade to 2 decades. Like think about wireless. If you look at the churn rate on wireless providers, when you choose between AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile, on average, that is a decade-long decision.
Right.
And so the ramifications of getting that experience right are really high. And, the age-old phrase, like that how important first impressions are. And so I think point A, the stakes are super high.
Yeah.
Point B, because you don't have a lot of data about the customer, I think that's a feature and a bug. One of the things that I've come to learn about data is that I think most companies spend too much time collecting it and not enough time using it. And so I have this own mantra when we operate within our company internally, as I say, like collect a little bit of data, use it, and earn the right to collect more data.
Yep.
And so I think one of the benefits of this point in the journey is you're not overwhelmed with a 10-year longitudinal history of the customer. Like you've got a set of data in the moment that you can go use. But in the verticals that we serve, a lot of times the consumer is bouncing between a digital experience, an AI-powered experience, a human consultative experience. If I'm getting a mortgage for the first time, like I want the reassurance and the confidence of like somebody helping me decide what's the best product, even though I can tinker with mortgage calculators all day long.
Yeah.
I'm worried about like, am I going to get my mortgage complete in time to close on the house that I put a bid on?
Yeah.
And so I think there's a huge amount of opportunity and importance in this moment. And I think if you focus on the right things, you can kind of bring together the experiential elements based on data, and you can deliver a great first impression. And if you win that moment, you've won the next decade. Whereas in the existing customer side, like you continue to win moment by moment by moment in a light way. But I feel like this area of the journey and experience is overlooked and people don't think about it. And I'll also add from an organizational dynamic, I can speak as a CEO, our ability as a company to acquire new customers is one of the top 3 metrics that we think about how we drive the business. And I find a lot of times CX folks are like looking for connections to power and relevance and budget within the organization.
Yep.
And this is like one of the top 3 things you can do, and it's staring right in front of your face. So like, go do it.
Yeah.
So anyway, sorry to it.
Well, I mean, I think the thing is that, I oftentimes kind of think about, I say to people that business can look complicated and complex, but it's sort of not really. If you think about it, if you really boil it down and think about most businesses sit on the same sort of chassis. It's a bit like your ability to generate interest, your ability to convert, that drives your number of customers. Then there's like how much they pay for, they will spend with you on average, and then how frequently they'll buy from you any given kind of period, that drives your revenue. Then you've got your cost of operations, and that's your profitability.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 blah. Customers, revenue, and profitability are all outcomes of all these other kind of levers. So go figure out kind of how you can influence one of those kind of like other sort of things like conversion rate, or how you attract, drive interest and all that sort of stuff. And that's how you make an impact.
Yeah.
And it's not rocket science.
Well, and I think the beauty, especially of acquisition, marketing, and sales, those tend to be business processes that are very well instrumented from a data capture point of view. And so if you make an emotional difference in the buying experience, then you can actually measure the impact of it. Like I'll give you an example. I have this new phrase. This is not I haven't run this past our marketing team, so I'm sure there's a better version of this phrase, but I call it orchestrated serendipity.
Okay.
And what this means is like one of the things we've done with one of our customers is if we understand what you search for and what you're looking at on the website, and then you're looking to get consultative advice from an agent in the contact center, we'll pass that data to the agent desktop, or we can pass it to like an agent assist, AI powered type of thing. And so what that gives the agent the ability to do is, instead of starting with a generic,
how can
I help you meeting? Now, again, like what I don't want to do is like, I see that you search for XYZ. Like you don't do it that way either. But if you can say, hi, how you doing today? We've got a special promotion where if you sign up for 2 years of our service, we'll give you 10% off XYZ. Yep. XYZ is the thing that they search for and the thing that they were looking at emotionally. Like, what do you feel like as a potential? Because you're like, it's my lucky day. It's my lucky day.
Yeah.
And that is a great, that's the first impression that you're making in human touch with that consumer. So that's great. We've run A/B tests with a customer. Like we saw 15% improvement in conversion rate.
Right.
So like not only are you delivering a better experience, but you're doing it at a point in the journey that is highly instrumented. So you can A/B test it and you can see if it has a business impact or not.
Perfect.
And it feels like magic. And like customer experience, when you get it right, feels like magic, but it's not magic. Sure. It's like you roll up your sleeves and you do a lot of data and technology work behind the scenes. You have to work across organizational boundaries, but the outcome is magic. And in this particular part of the journey, the magic can be fairly well correlated directly to lower expenses, higher revenue. And like as a CEO, what more could you ask for?
Indeed. And I think the thing that's sort of almost building on that, because you talked about first impressions and you talked about how people feel and you talked about data and things, but then you talked about this idea that, because there's a lot of talk in the market right now about moats and things changing the competitive landscape, but you said trust is the competitive moat, and it starts with whose data the AI is trained on. And this sort of speaks to something else that you've been working on. And I wanted to, because it's related, but I also wanted you to explain to me what you meant by that around the sort of trust as a competitive moat and the point around.
I think I would encourage people just in general, if you look around and see sort of messaging from technology providers, or if you go talk to buyers, trust is a word that is, if I played the word association game, trust and AI, those concepts are getting closer together. And that's both from a consumer perspective, I think, around AI, and also from a technology buyer perspective around like, can I trust the system? what's happening with the data that we're feeding and everything else. And so now we're fortunate in that we have been building AI products for a decade, but I'd say there's a pretty sharp difference between our first generation of AI products and our second generation. Our first generation is we were using AI to understand conversations between brand and consumers, getting deep insight into it, turning it into individual data points on an individual consumer journey basis that you could then go activate in Google and Meta and Adobe and Salesforce, and not just like look at trends or charts, but like activate the data in real time, fully automated. And then the thing we've been doing over the past 2 years has been actually using AI to drive and orchestrate consumer to brand interactions. And so we built an SMS product where you can, like, instead of filling out a form on a website and then getting a random call back, 36, 48 hours later from a number you don't recognize, like you can hook up an AI agent to the website and it'll directly text you back and start asking you more questions or answer any questions that you have, and then set up a time for you to talk to somebody that's convenient, like deliver a more seamless experience. But the number one question that when we deployed this product to customers that they had was like, can I trust the experience it's going to deliver? I think everybody has had some challenging experiences with chatbots and they worry about all the talk in the AI press. And so like one of the things that we did from day one, a lot of our customers, we have data on journeys of like digital touches and engagement and then human-to-human conversations. We're like, hey, why don't we use and extract the insights we can from you as a brand, your conversations that you've had with consumers, identify the patterns, leverage the best practices, surface that back up to you. So if your business has changed, you can tweak it. But like doing the hard work to, when you go activate AI, ensure that it's not just looking at a general purpose reasoning model from Claude or OpenAI, but it's actually leveraging the business context, the business knowledge of you and your organization. And I think a lot of people, when they deploy AI, they want to have that business context. The challenge is that technology providers like, well, great, Adrian, like go find that business context for us. You go search around, you go collect all the data. And we're just trying to make smart use of the data that we have to make it easier than ever for customers to go deploy AI in a way that they can trust and they can verify and they have confidence it's going to work.
And would it be safe to say that then you're getting close to helping kind of brands develop their own sort of like SLM, so because it's built on their
exactly. And like we're really trying to kind of leverage the best of both worlds in the sense of like broad reasoning and inference is useful, but really tailoring that to the brand experience. And then one of the things we're working on right now is like, how do we continue to refine that brand knowledge set in an automated way? Because obviously like your business doesn't stay static, it changes, your products and services evolve and change. So we're looking at, how can we take that inherent knowledge, that flow of information that's happening back and forth, and sort of build that into the AI brain for your company to go engage the people via SMS or voice or other channels. And how do we keep that up to date over time? But it's really about the more that we can apply and the more that we as a technology partner can do the hard work of applying your brand's context to your brand's AI, we just make it easier for you to adopt. And I think everybody knows right now, there's tons of pressure from boards and CEOs and executive teams like, how do you go deploy AI? And what I keep saying to our team is, every customer I talk to has two questions. Number one, can I trust the experience? And so like our AI products of this next generation, we're giving customers access to them for 60 days for no charge at all to answer that question. And the second question, which is, can I build a business case that supports investing in this? And the benefit for us is we're already wired into where you spend money in advertising, where you make money from a revenue point of view. So anything that AI does that improves that, like we can instrument it, we can measure it, we can A/B test it, and we can hand you as a customer a business case that you can take to your boss and go use to justify investment.
Nice. I mean, because I think that's the kind of the whole thing around, you talked about this kind of like trust. I mean, but also there's a perception gap thing going on, because there's all this talk over, people are talking about AI is going to improve the customer experience, the buying experience, all these different things. And your own research has said, I mean, it's almost like a perennial sort of thing. More research finds the same sort of thing. There's a gap between, was it 86%, your research found that 86% of marketeers believe that AI improves the buying experience, but only 35% of consumers agree.
Yeah. Well, it's also one of the surveys that we did a year ago, and we asked marketers, how would you rate you and your team in terms of, are you ahead of the curve or behind the curve on AI adoption? And like 90% of marketers said that they were ahead of the curve on AI adoption, which by definition can't be true.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that's one of the beauty of working with marketers is marketers are optimistic people who are forward looking or thinking about the future and are striving to be good. And the job is like, how do you help them deliver on that promise?
But there is a real problem in that sort of perception gap, because it's like relates back to that, was it the old Bain statistic, which said like 90% of kind of companies think they're killing it when it comes to customer experience, and like only like 9% or 8% of customers agree. And so the gap's got a little bit kind of like smaller, but it's a gap nevertheless.
Yeah.
I mean, so, and it's a perception gap, and it's what should marketers be doing to collapse that?
I'm gonna go back to the data point, which is marketers. And I'm going to include like digital product folks when I think about this, because when I say marketers, sometimes people include people who own the website, mobile app. Sometimes people don't. It kind of depends on your definition. Marketers generally have lots of data around where the gaps are wrong. They just need to use the data. And so, for example, one of the use cases I've been talking a lot about with Adobe customers this week is you can use customer journey analytics to understand how people get to your site, how they navigate through your site. Do they buy? Do they not buy? Do they abandon? And like one of the simple things that we do with our customers is we say, hey, sometimes when people abandon, they're truly abandoning. Sometimes when they abandon, they're actually escalating offline into your contact center and they're having conversations with people. And like with our technology, you have a direct feedback loop where you can see, I as a person landed on the website, I went to go look at information about this product, maybe I put something in my shopping cart, and then in a digital only world, you think I abandoned. What I actually did is I called into your contact center and I had a conversation with an agent. Now, that may be a conversation, back to the mortgage example, like when I got my first mortgage, I had an MBA, I'd worked at BCG, I'd done the math. The math was not a problem for me.
Yeah.
I'd never bought a house before. I had my wife and I had put an offer on a condo in San Francisco that like we just had our first child, like we had our hearts set on that. And I'm just like nervous about the process. And addressing that nervousness and giving me confidence is not something that a website does. You can provide content around that, but a lot of that is like human touch. It's emotional reassurance. Whereas if somebody else called in and was like, I'm just not really sure about the differences between a 5-year and a 10-year, where it's like, that is explainable on the website. And so a lot of the work that we do with customers is help them understand what's abandonment versus what's escalation in the contact center and what's good escalation. What is a human being playing a role that only a human being can play? Versus where can you take some of those issues and solve them with technology? And I always believe if you work with engineers, there's nothing more frustrating than trying to tell an engineer about a problem that they can't see. And there's nothing more empowering, motivating that leads to success than like letting an engineer see a problem firsthand themselves. Because engineers are problem solvers by definition.
Sure.
And so I'll say like, hey, let's go show the path and show even down to at an abstract level, but also an individual level. Like let's let you see a session replay of someone on the website and then hear the conversation they had in the contact center. And an engineer will see that end-to-end experience and then it'll be like, by definition, I want to go fix that. Like, what can I do to go fix that?
Nice.
So I think a lot of it's like using the data that you have. You can survey somebody after the fact and ask them about their experience, but you've got the data of what their experience was. Go look at it and use that data. And I think that's where you can start to narrow some of that gap.
I think that's right. I mean, I think that there's but it's all, I think what you're talking about then speaks to a sort of a larger thing where people need to sort of experience stuff. Because I talk about there's a couple of things I talk about. One is I talk about, so there's different levels of leadership, because sometimes you have to influence leadership. Is that there's the first level, there's leaders that use data and it informs them. And then there's another level where people enrich that data but with like stories, and the stories move them.
Yeah.
Right? But then the third level is when they go further and they actually have these experiences. They actually go and speak to people, or they serve them, or they do whatever. But the experiences, because it's another level of data, it compels them. So data informs, stories move, experiences compel.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be really interesting. And I love the way that you sort of collapsing that distance where you can show an engineer and the whole thing, and then you listen to somebody, because that's an experience sort of thing, right? But these sort of gaps exist all over the place in organizations. And I think that's a really, because it always struck me, like you go and stay in like a fancy hotel And I always wonder, or you go to a nice restaurant, well, maybe not a nice restaurant, not in a restaurant, but like a hotel. You go to a hotel and you go, say it's like a 5-star hotel. And I often wonder how many of those people that work in that hotel have actually experienced what it is to be a guest at that hotel.
Yeah, yeah.
And I have a position where I go, I say, well, if you haven't experienced it, then you're guessing about what a good experience should feel like and what, you know, and what it should look like. And I think that's the what many businesses don't do. They don't collapse that distance between kind of what they want their people to do and what they want their customers to experience.
Which is like the highest level of empathy. Right. I'll give you an awesome experience that I had as a consumer probably 4 or 5 months ago. Okay, so shout out to Geico. Geico is not a customer. So this is not me talking my own book, advertising my own technology, but my wife and I have had auto insurance with Geico for quite some time. And my oldest son was going away to college. And he'd been on our auto insurance policy, but he was not taking his car. And so I went into chat session really just with the idea of like, what's the right thing for me to do here in terms of his coverage when he's going to be away at school, but he's not going to have a car, but he's going to come home on the weekends. So.
Yeah.
And so in general, they used their data well. They understood what products and services I already had. They could see that he was 18 years old. He was about to be a freshman. Like they did the mechanics well. But there were 2 things that just made me go, wow, that was a great experience. One of them is very simple, which is probably about halfway through the chat. I don't know what I expressed that sort of indicated, it was clearly human on the other side. But she started using emojis with me.
Okay.
And that just immediately brought a shared level of humanity to the conversation. And then the thing that just blew me away was at the very end, I made a comment, maybe it was like talking about like the time when the policy change would come into effect. And I was like, yeah, I'm just trying to wrap this up before he goes to college on Monday. Okay. It's my oldest son. If you had asked me 5 years ago before he went away to college, what an emotional experience sending your first child to college or university would be like, I would have been clueless. This person unprompted said to me, I have to imagine this is a really challenging time you're going through and it's really emotional for you. And I just hope that that goes really well for your family. And in a world where we talk about like data and AI and all that stuff, like that empathy and shared humanity elevated an experience that was 100% transactional to like, I screenshotted it, I sent it to our product team, and I said like, these are the types of experiences we need to be using data and AI to help facilitate or orchestrate. Is how does you as a brand move from helping a customer with a rational, logical, transactional issue to like, can you make an emotional connection? Yeah. And that I was just blown away because it was like a demonstration of human empathy that no system, no data would ever have informed. And I didn't ask, but I assume this person has been through that experience before because now that I've been through it, I have newfound empathy for people who are going through that. Yep. But the fact that she included that in essentially a policy adjustment, I just thought was really cool.
Yeah, no, and it's sometimes it's these little things that kind of add up to kind of like, to be a whole heap of stuff. But I know you're a bit pressed for time, so I'm going to ask you one final question, then a couple of wrap-up questions. Who are you working with right now you think they're killing, and why?
You know, it's interesting. I think we do a lot of work with DirecTV, and I hope I won't offend my friends at DirecTV in saying that like DirecTV is running a business where there's a lot of headwind. In terms of people adopting streaming, and they've adopted a stream strategy as well. And so they're finding strategic ways to do that. But I just find they're doing really interesting, innovative things with our technology. And it's not just in the marketing world. So like, I'll give you an example of the things they had done, and they A/B test all this stuff, which I think is great too. In fact, challenged us to, we now have an A/B testing feature within our product in terms of call routing. But like, for example, when people come to the website and start doing searches on the site around cancellation, instead of sending people down a traditional IVR experience, like what is the last thing that you want to do with somebody who's thinking about canceling service? Deliver a frustrating experience for them. And so one of the things they'll do is like, if you display any intent on the website related to cancellation, will use our technology to talk to their back-end contact center infrastructure. And like that goes automatically to a loyalty and team. And so just those small things where can you remove friction? Where can you remove frustration points? We're now looking at using our data and passing it into some of the AI voice agent technology that they're using. Again, to the idea of, can you deliver, the beauty of AI is, a human being can only take in a certain amount of data points. AI can take in infinite data points. And so now we're looking at can we deliver a really uniquely personalized experience, because AI can take in all this data and sort of craft an onboarding experience that's really interesting. So I've just been really impressed with their sort of strategic, innovative thinking around how they adapt to a world of cord cutting and leaning into streaming and all that other sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And then at the tactical technology execution level, they've been a great partner for us and just pushing us to use technology in new and innovative ways. So big shout out to this guys.
Awesome. Anything else you want to highlight before we get to some quick fire ones?
Quick fire away.
Boiling it all down, best advice, complete this sentence. And the sentence is this: if you want to improve your customer experience, Greg says, do this.
Use the data you have. Use the data you have. Earn the right to use more data by showing you can provide value with the data that you have today. Too much time on collection, too little time on action.
Awesome. Love it.
Not to be repetitive.
No. I mean, hammering it home. What brand do you think is, would earn the moniker of going, they're doing punk things in the kind of the customer experience space? Why?
I mean, I'll go back to the Geico example, and that I think companies that are finding new ways to bring everybody's running towards digital and AI. And I think in the Adrian Svensko meaning of the word, a punk thing to do is to think about how can you continue to display humanity and empathy and all those direct touch. I saw something the other day on LinkedIn where somebody had gotten a handwritten note from someone, and they're just I never get these anymore. And the value of that and the meaning of that and the way that you stand out in that way, I think is really powerful. So, when I think about my Geico example or other examples where people are finding ways to show humanity, and it's not an either or, it needs to be a both and.
Yeah.
Because obviously you can't scale and compete in today's world, if you don't have a mobile app or things like that. But thinking about where are those unique touch points when you can insert and inject humanity in a way that's powerful for the customer is, I think, really cool and punk.
I know, absolutely. I can agree more. It brings me back to that sort of thing around what Jensen Wang was saying around this purpose and sort of task thing. It's going, you need to create the space to be more purposeful. And then whether that's being creative or applying humanity or doing whatever it might be, it's just that there's little differences.
Totally. I mean, it's a stupid example. When we were hiring an executive probably 3 years ago, it was one of the first times that I'd used call recordings on our Zoom interviews.
Yeah.
And I was hesitant to do it because, an interview is a very sort of intimate one-on-one experience. So I'd ask people for permission at the beginning, but I just felt it let me focus on the conversation in a fundamentally different, I didn't have my notepad out. I wasn't scribbling down notes. Could really, really focus on the conversation. So yeah, and I think applied well, technology and AI can really help you emphasize that human element where it matters most.
Yeah.
It's resetting my password, don't want to talk to a human being at all, never. But in, moments of emotional need and clarification, human touch really critical.
One last quick question. The world is in a weird place.
I hadn't noticed.
Doom scrolling is a thing. Tell me a good news story. So we finish on that.
Can I tell you a positive good news story?
Of course.
So I have 3 kids, freshman in university, junior in high school, which in American high school, junior is the most academically intense. Right. I have a 6th grader. And so I have a 5-year gap between my middle one and my youngest one. And that gap helps me appreciate things that I did not appreciate with my older 2 kids. And so a few weeks ago, we decided to do one last skiing weekend for the year. And I took him out. And the reason we went where we went to Mammoth, which is a little bit farther than Tahoe where we would normally go. But I was the snowpack's a little bit better down there. It's going to last a little bit longer. We'll do one last trip. So we made the trip and ended up dumping with snow. And just the joy and spending a powder day. Like powder days are great because everybody's happy. And like just the sheer unadulterated joy of like being out in the world off your phone, just talking and having a great day. It was awesome. And I texted my wife. I was just like, I wish I could bottle this moment and keep it forever, because I know like he's going to grow up and he's going to be a teenager soon and all those other sort of things. But I was debating about making that trip because my travel schedule was super busy. And just one of the things I've tried to tell my college freshmen is like your default answer in life should be yes, not no. And when you get opportunities, people regret the things, most people, at least for me, regret the things they didn't do more than the things that they did. And so like having that default yes outlook on life of like when you get opportunities to do things, whether you're tired, you don't want to do this, it's been a long week, but like it's rare that when you say yes, you regret it. And I find more so in life, when you say no, you regret it. And so that was a weekend where I was like, I don't want to drive 5 hours after we'd been gone here and I'm traveling there. Said yes, and like had one of the best days I've had all year.
Awesome. What a great way to end it. I just want to say thank you. Well, first of all, it's always great to talk to you.
Always great to see you. We'll make it another 8 years.
Oh, no, let's try not to make it another 8 years. But just thank you for sharing your time and your insights. See, even people next door cheering.
They're excited. They're like, say yes, people, say yes. That's our message from Adobe Summit.
But yeah, just thank you for sharing your time and your expertise with me today. It's
always a pleasure.
Super.
Always a pleasure.
Wow, what a great interview. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I did. Find out more about me and the work that I do at adrianswinscoe.com. Do leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. And if you have any comments, feedback, or questions about the podcast, then feel free to send me a message to podcast@adrianswinscoe.com. And do tune in again. Thanks very much.